Hello everybody, apologies for that, a bit of a technical hiccup there. So we're not quite sure why the stream turned off then, but apparently it did. So we're just going to get back to where we were. So as I mentioned before, we're going to focus on what not to do in the exam and looking at what not to focus on in the exam. So for now we're just going to look at paper 1. My wonderful writing once again. We'll take that down. So, paper 1. So, what not to focus on in paper 1. So, question 1, really, the key bits of information in question 1 is that you don't want to focus on large parts of the text. So, for question 1, it's a nice straightforward, it's a nice easy ease into the exam. So we don't want you focusing on large extracts. Remember, they'll only ask you to look at very few select lines, usually near the beginning of the text or right at the start. So just look for the phrases needed and write those down. There is no need to explain anything, so don't focus on anything other than the bit you need. So it's a list question, so just list the answer, don't focus on anything else. For question 2, this is where what not to focus on becomes really important. Okay, so I'm just going to write up so we know what we're talking about here. Up at the top, paper 1, question 2. Okay, so for paper 1, question 2, what not to focus on, and it's going to sound really quite strange at first, but let me explain. What not to focus on: language, language features. So the most important thing not to focus on is language features. So lots of students instantly think when they see the language question, right, I'm going to identify as many language features as I can do, and that's going to get me a wonderful score. And you'll maybe get a response that says the writer uses a simile, quote, and you write it. The writer uses a metaphor, quote, write it. The writer uses personification, you write it. That is the one thing not to do. The examiner is not impressed by just identifying language features and listing them. All you're showing there is the ability to identify language features. The examiner wants you to show that you understand how language has been used for an effect. Now that doesn't say language features, that just says language. The examiner wants to see that you've got the skill to identify when language has been used for a specific effect. That does not have to be a language feature. It can literally just be a phrase that has been used that creates an effect, and that is the most important thing. The examiners have said that they want students to show that they understand where language has been used for effect and what effect that is. So the question will change, and that's why all I can say really on that part is how language is used for effect, because some example questions can be, how has the writer used language to create an eerie and ominous atmosphere? Okay, how has the writer used language to emotionally affect a reader? How has the writer used language to present character X? Yeah, so it's how has language been used, what is the effect of that language? So the best bit of advice: do not focus on language features, focus on 2 or 3 phrases that are language rich. So what we mean by language rich is words have been used for a specific effect. So you're mainly going to be looking at adjectives there, really, not language features. So question 2, do not focus on language features. Language features are used to enhance your response, not something to focus your answer on. Okay, so now we'll look at paper 1, question 3. So this is our structure question. So when we're looking at the structure question, the question will 100% how has the writer structured the text to interest the reader. Okay, now what we get quite a lot of and what not to focus on is the storyline. do not focus on the storyline. Although the word structure has been used, and you might link the word structure to plot, you know, the plot structure, that is not what we want. Do not link the storyline to our structure question. I feel like an added benefit here will be to put a big red X here. Do not do this, okay? Do not look at the storyline. That is not what we want. Best bit of advice for the question 3. Identify what the writer focuses our attention on at the beginning and how does that interest us as a reader. When does the focus shift? Why does it shift? Why is it shifted at that point? What reason has the writer... What is the reason to that shift in focus? How does that interest us? Then think, how does the extract end? How does that ending interest us as a reader? Also, as a plus side, if you can identify the motif, make sure we use that running theme. What is the running theme in the text, and how is that interesting? How is that interesting to the reader? So, paper 1, question 3, do not focus on the storyline. Oh, we're still in red. Paper 1. Question 4. Okay, so what should you not focus on? I feel like I need to redo that one because that's one of the most horrific ones I've seen written in my lifetime. I do apologise for the sometimes it not being the clearest some of the text, and obviously it's quite hard sometimes to draw things on this whiteboard. So what not to focus on in question 4. So what not to focus on is disagree. Do not disagree. Some students have said, to what extent do you agree? And they have disagreed with that statement. Do not disagree with the statement. It makes your answer so much easier if you just agree with it. So don't focus your attention on ways to disagree. Even though it says to what extent, you could technically disagree. The best responses from last year are responses that agreed with the statement. The examiner won't try to trick you or catch you out. They won't find a statement that will be tough, okay, to apply to the text. The statement will be written to which you should agree, and it will be easy if you agree. So don't focus attention on disagreeing with the statement. Always agree. It will lead to you being able to write a better response. So paper 1, question 5. So on the final question of the paper here, there's a few things really here to discuss. Really, this video is going to be about what not to focus on, and really, you know, pitfalls that you can find. And when you think about question 5, remember that you're considering both a descriptive and a narrative task possibly. Remember, we could get 2 descriptives, or we could get 2 narrative tasks, or we could get one of either. So descriptive or narrative, if the choice does come up, I would advise you to do descriptive, remember. And that is because a narrative needs a beginning, a middle and an end, and you don't have very long, so it is very tough to construct an effective plot with good characterization within 45 minutes. It is a very big ask really of that, for characterization, a well-structured plot in something that you only have 45 minutes really to write. So a descriptive piece is always going to be the preferable option because they don't have an ending. A descriptive piece of writing ends once you are finished describing what you want to describe, so it has no ending, so you're fine with that one. That's why the descriptive will be the better. And what not to focus on for this question really comes back to what not to focus on in question 2. So for now I'm going to write again language features. Now, do not get me wrong, we want language features, and we do want them in our writing, so we don't want you to completely ignore language features. Language features need to be in your writing, but the reason I've said this for now is students can sometimes try to make them the focus of their writing, and that is a big no-no. Your writing needs to flow, it needs to be extremely descriptive. We don't want really forced language features. What I mean by forced is don't try to get a language feature into every single sentence, okay? If you're trying to do that, it's not going to work. Your writing is not going to flow. It's not going to work very well at all. So do not make language features the focus of your response. They should come naturally within your writing, and that will make it so much more effective than trying to force language features in, thinking that each one will gain you more marks. They won't. They need to be appropriate for your writing. And then additionally, what I'd like to say from that, I'm just going to take out language features for now. So, let's take my question 5 out. Oh, it's taking quite a bit of my paper 1 out as well. I'll rewrite that. Do not focus on the senses separately. So when the senses are separate, it ends up reading like a list. Some responses that are really not very good or very well marked at all are responses that address the sight sense, then the smell sense, then the taste sense, then the sound sense, and then the texture sense. I don't think I've said all of them. Make sure I'm a bit concerned there. I've doubled up on those. So you get your sight, your smell, your taste, your touch, and your sound senses. Okay, so responses that don't do very well look at the sight sense, then they move on to smell, then they move on to taste, then they move on to sound, and then move on to texture. And what ends up happening is they end up reading like a list. I can see this, and I can smell this, and I can taste this, and I can feel this, and I can hear this, and it ends up just reading like a list. So when you address the senses separately, it doesn't read very well. You want a mixture of all 5 senses in at once. Remember, we experience things with our senses together, so when you eat something, you both see it and smell it at the exact same time. Your first impression of food is the sight and the smell of the food at the same time together, and then it is the taste and the smell and the sight of food at the same time. So your senses are combined when you experience things, so your writing should reflect that. So don't address the senses separately. Okay, so that is our paper 1, what not to focus on. Okay, and tomorrow we'll be doing the same but for paper 2. So tomorrow we'll be going over what not to focus on in paper 2. Okay, so please remember, you've got your exams on the 5th and the 8th of June for your English, and there are twilight revision sessions running Monday through to Thursday, 4:30 till 5:30. We also have our May half-term revision classes as well. Ask your tutor about specific times for those, please. Thank you for listening, and if you've got any questions, please do email us in. So that will be englishandmaths@wigan-leigh.ac.uk.